So George Kellerman, thanks for being able to join. Can you just give a little bit of background about yourself and what you do over at Woven Capital, please? That'd be perfect.
Yeah, my name is George Kellerman. I'm the head of investments and acquisitions at Woven Planet and the managing director at Woven Capital. And Woven Capital is an $800 million growth stage fund that exists to help Woven Planet accelerate its mission of providing affordable and safe mobility to all. And many people don't realize this, but Woven Planet is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Toyota Motor Corporation. So we have the backing and support of the Toyota Motor Group globally.
That's really helpful. And obviously, before that, you've got quite a storied history and career. So George, understanding from the VC point of view, 500 startups, obviously understanding corporate venturing world before this, Yamaha, and obviously at Crystal as well. And, you know, you've kind of covered that whole global, in some ways, ecosystem that's coming together around venture and corporate venturing and this sort of new hybrid approach. So it seems a great place to be. And I suppose one of the areas that we've been focusing on global corporate venturing through the Leadership Society is not just as the industry's grown over the past dozen or so years from a few hundred corporates engaging as direct or indirect investors in startups and working with them through open innovation and corporate venturing, you know, as it's growing to more than 6,000 over that sort of dozen or so years, obviously we're starting to find much more pockets regionally as well as sectorally coming together and looking to come together. So at Global Corporate Venturing, we do obviously the regional events, the main ones in Sao Paulo, in Monterey, in UK, in London, and Tokyo in Japan. But we're also bringing these forums together through sector councils, as we call them, global sector councils, which try to look at a value chain in a particular area, whether it's healthcare or whether it's AI and deep tech or whether it's in finance, you know, in order to kind of pull together some experts there that can share with a wider group, and then equally across these different councils start to kind of almost find ways to be able to understand technologies or issues that might cut across specific value chains in that way. And so we're delighted to be thinking about the creation of the Global Mobility Council. Delighted that you've been chosen and accepted to be the inaugural chairman of that council. So thank you very much for that. And I suppose be first interested what you want to achieve, or what you want the council to achieve, George.
Well, you know, mobility often, you know, people talk about mobility, they talk about the movement of people and goods. For us, mobility it has a third element, and that's the mobility of information. And that's becoming even more important in today's connected society. In order to achieve a lot of the different things that we want to do with respect to the mobility of people and goods, requires the ability to move vast quantities of information. So mobility is more than just moving from A to B. It's why are you moving from A to B, and how are you moving from A to B? And you know, when you think of human history, the world looks the way it does today because of human migration. Humans by nature are mobile. They're constantly moving and trying to find, whether it's new resources or new places to live. And so it's fundamental to the human experience to be able to get around. And we want to make sure that we're serving the needs of all people, not just the wealthy or those who could afford an automobile, but you know, people who may use public transportation, or they are relying on bicycles or micromobility, and again, all the different flavors, or autonomous driverless mobility. So what I really want to achieve with the council is to bring together thought leaders in all of these different areas, and understanding that the solutions that we want to create are interconnected. As you talked about, when you say mobility, it's not just about the auto OEMs, but it's also the parts suppliers, it's the governments and regulators that enable it and make it possible. It's the Wi-Fi and telecommunications providers that allow you to order your ride, and then it's the payment systems, it's insurance. A lot of people don't really realize that mobility as an industry, and whether that's cars, trains, boats, planes, it really doesn't matter. They are actually integrated systems, and it takes a lot of knowledge and expertise across all of those to understand how they come together and how we collectively can create value for the end user, the customer that's actually trying to get from A to B or move goods from A to B.
That's super helpful in that way. So when you think about who might be on it then, like, or not just the council, but that wider group, you're really thinking about that entire value chain, that sort of integrated system, as you say. So it could be some people from the finance, it could be some people from the sort of the OEM or the parts, or just people who kind of think, what could the technology achieve if it was applied in this area, say quantum computing? What would that mean to information flows? Is that about right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to provide an example, one of the projects at Woven Planet is Woven City. It's a prototype city of the future, where we are going to be experimenting and deploying all kinds of different mobility solutions. But Toyota, as an auto manufacturer, can't develop all the necessary technologies itself. We have to bring partners to the table. We have to collaborate with a lot of different companies, technologies, and partners in order to realize the vision. So it's the same thing. These are really ecosystems, and we want to take a broad view of the players in that ecosystem and how each one of them contributes to producing that end product or service.
That's a great way. So you talked about the vision. So can you say in a little bit more detail how it works? Obviously, if Toyota owns Woven Planet, and then there's Woven Capital, which is this $800 million sort of CVC fund, presumably a 10-year plus a couple of years sort of extension available, to invest in. How does it work between what Woven Capital can do as a CVC unit versus what Woven Planet's trying to do, and then ultimately with Toyota as the mothership?
Well, a couple of years ago, Akio Toyoda, the current CEO of Toyota Motor Corporation, announced at CES that he wanted to transform the company from being an automobile manufacturer to a mobility company. And again, to us, mobility is the movement of people, goods, and information. And with that, there was a recognition that we needed new technologies, new ways of developing these products and services. It goes beyond just the hardware, but you have to really have the digital and software elements that make the hardware achieve the things that we want to do, like an autonomous vehicle, for example. You can build the hardware, but building the software and the sensing package and the communication network in order to make that piece of hardware autonomous is a major challenge. And so when we look at Woven Capital, the kinds of things that we want to invest in are these technologies that are really the digital software technologies that we want to put together or put into these vehicles to create a product or a service that ultimately could be used, whether it's a personally owned vehicle or a fleet vehicle, or it's an autonomous delivery vehicle. We really want to figure out how do we bridge that hardware and software divide. Toyota's great at building the hardware, and we're lucky to have a partner such as Toyota developing the hardware. We're really focusing on bringing those digital and software capabilities to Woven Planet.
That's really, really powerful. And so presumably it's a sort of a global approach, a mix of some fund investments as well as sort of direct growth stage. Where do you think sort of sweet spot is in terms of what you think Woven Capital could do and how it can complement other areas that Toyota has, such as their AI fund?
Well, I can't really talk about Woven Capital without mentioning Toyota Ventures. It's a sister fund within the Toyota group. Toyota Ventures, they have Fund 1 and Fund 2, and they're in the process of launching their new Frontier Fund and a climate fund. And they really focus on the early stage investments. They're an exploratory fund. So they're looking for those things that are beyond the horizon, kind of horizon 3 type of opportunities. As a growth stage fund, we're really looking for those things that can help accelerate Woven Planet's mission today or in the near future. We're not necessarily looking for the next technological breakthrough that's going to be 10 years down the road. We're really looking for companies that have the potential to partner and collaborate with us today or in the near future. And so when we're looking at that, we're doing an inventory of our capabilities and understanding where we have gaps in our technology stack, or in areas where we just don't have the skill, know-how, or capability to actually develop it in-house. And it makes much more sense for us to invest in and partner with these later stage companies. And we're focusing on the later stage because we really are looking for companies that have the ability to start working with us from day one. As you know, earlier stage companies, like at the seed and Series A stage, sometimes they're too small to really work with a big global corporate. And that's really why we're really focused on the growth stage, whereas Toyota Ventures is really focused on the early stage.
And it made sense, really sort of joined up approach there, and
yeah,
all the corporates are going that way, where they've got almost multiple corporate venturing approaches, and it all kind of fits under one, sort of innovation strategy and as one tool set. So really powerful to see a group like Toyota lead in this way, George. Thank you. And I suppose if I took a step back, obviously you've been in and around the sort of corporate venturing community, for at least 10 years. I was trying to remember the first time you attended what's effectively the GCVI summit in
2012. Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. So what do you like about the corporate venturing community? Because it is quite different from your sort of VC work that you had done as well. So I'm interested what you like about this space.
The one thing I love about the corporate venture capital space is the sense of shared mission. I don't think CVC gets the credit it's due. And there's some VCs out there that talk negatively about taking money from corporates, but I'm in a completely different camp. I love going to the GCVI events every year. It's probably the one conference that I go to every year where I know who I'm going to meet. Even if I go to CS, I know I may run into some people, but it's such a big event that it's difficult to really find the time to meet up with people. Whereas GCVI is a much more intimate, smaller event. And one thing that I think the CVC industry doesn't get enough credit for is the level of collaboration and sharing. People often talk about Silicon Valley as being this very open and sharing environment where people will willingly give you a hand, and I believe that is generally true. But my experience within the VC industry is it's very competitive because really at the end of the day, VCs are trying to make a financial return. And so it's competitive in that sense. They want to get into the best deals. They want to get as much of the round as they can. They want to lead the round. They want to sit on the board. Whereas in CVC, we're trying to balance the financial returns, which are important, but we're also looking for ways to collaborate and work with the companies that we're investing in to create those strategic returns. And strategic returns are not always unique to the partner. I've been in many companies where there were 5 to 10 different CVCs had invested in that company. None of us competed with each other. We each brought a different thing to the table, a different capability or strength to the table to support that startup. One company might be an insurance company, another one might be a hardware company, another one might be an automobile company, another one might be a fintech company. Again, it's really finding all those different collaborators and bringing them to the same table, and that's one thing that CVC can do that VC really can't, because the CVC is bringing more than money. They're bringing the weight of the companies that they support.
That's a really powerful, position there, George. Really like to hear that. And so, when we set up the GCV Global Corporate Venture and Leadership Society, it was very much that idea when you looked at the data that the top 20% of firms really were doing 80% of deals, had that sort of experienced set of managers, were able to bring that strategic and often financial return and focus on the portfolio company and bring some of that sort of parent company impact in. So I suppose, how have you found that? Obviously, as a luminary member of the society, we really appreciate Toyota and Woven being able to join. How have you found that sort of idea of being able to give back, not just to your peer group within that top 20%, but also to the others who are perhaps a little earlier on their journey and looking to you for that sort of respect and advice and guidance on how to do it and how to do it in a complementary way?
Yeah, and you really mentioned it just there with some that are still on their journey. They're still trying to figure out their way. And I'm a strong believer that if you want to remain relevant in today's day and age, and you're a large global, or even you don't even have to be global, you could be a large corporation in a given region or country. But if you want to remain relevant and you want to be able to continually innovate, that you have to have some element of corporate venturing in your toolkit. It's not enough to just build it yourself and watch what's happening and try to play catch up. The one thing that I like to often say is that the pace of technological innovation is accelerating, and it's almost an exponential curve. The pace is really accelerating every year, which means it's impossible for any one player to stay in front of that technological curve, and that means it's even more important that we find the people who have the skill, experience, and knowledge in that given technology, and find ways to work and collaborate with them. And one of the best ways to do that is to invest. When we invest, we're always taking at least a board observer seat, and that's because we're not just a passive financial investor. We want to learn what's really going on, what's driving this industry or this technology. Who are the players that are coming in? Who are the players that are leaving? What types of customers are signing up for that particular product or service? And so it really is about getting in there and learning. But what you said about new people along their journey, we've just seen in the last couple of years an explosive growth in CVC. But what that means is there's a lot of people that come in and there's no ready source of information. Frankly, there's not a lot of ready information available for venture capital. There've been a lot of books written over the last 10 years, but if you haven't worked in VC, it's really hard to understand what the real levers of it are. You can academically read some books about it. I would say CVC is maybe 10 years behind. You and your organization have done a great job of writing some books, and at least now you could get some information. But it's the same thing. Until you've actually done it, it's difficult to really appreciate how to do it well. And that's what I love about the Leadership Society is it's really bringing together thought leaders and figuring out ways to take that information and then share it back out with the community, with the rest of the membership. And that's going back to what I was saying before about this very collaborative, open group of people that are sharing best practices. Because when I look at the other members in the Leadership Society, yeah, sure, there are some other companies in there that might compete with Toyota at the top level, but I don't see them as competitors in terms of the kind of work that we want to do together. I see them as potential partners or collaborators in creating the solutions that we collectively want to bring to the market.
Yeah, that's such a thoughtful, mature approach there, George. It's really powerful to hear. It's really sort of helped create that ecosystem, yeah, because through the sort of Leadership Society, people like yourself can give back, but also you kind of get back in terms of having those collaboration opportunities come through. So from the society, you can work through the institute, which is the professional development training, not just for CVCs, but also from the parent companies to help them land the value of the business development opportunities with the portfolio companies. And then through the reports and the data and the events, you get the sort of networking and connection opportunities to hopefully do more and better deals in that way. So it really does feel like it's the ecosystem such as yourself of come together to really sort of help enable not just yourselves, but that wider community. It's really that sort of opening ethos that, a Dick Kramlich or Dixon Dole used to have, in the early days of Silicon Valley from a VC point of view. Come together, maybe give some co-investment opportunities to Stanford University to build out the next racetrack, and that sort of early ideas. It really felt it was very sort of different, and it's good to see that the CVCs are keeping that sort of flame alive in that way. And I suppose not everything is rosy, of course, George. What do you think could be improved about the industry?
The one thing that I think could be improved is spending more time with companies that don't have a CVC yet. The group right now in many ways is self-selected in the sense that we all have CVCs. I've met several people at global corporate venturing events that are thinking about and exploring the idea. But I think there are so many more out there that really bringing them in and showing them this community, these people, and getting them engaged, even if they don't set up a fund, even if they don't write a check from their balance sheet, there's so much that they can do to participate in the ecosystem and support the overall activity. And I think that's one area, it's really an outreach program, because if you're not in CVC, you may not even know that these opportunities exist, that the institute exists, that there's this group of people that can help you understand the challenges they went through. They may be in year 2 or 3 or 4 of their journey, and they could tell you, watch out for this, or make sure you have this kind of buy-in from the CEO or the CTO or whoever it might be. And that's really powerful. And that's actually, what I feel fortunate, because I have been going to GCV for 10 years, is being able to develop those relationships, and every year hear speakers and meet with people and see how the industry itself is evolving. But also, when I was joined with Hiroshi Saijo to launch Yamaha Motor Ventures in 2015, he and I both actually met at GCV earlier that year. And so we knew that there was a ready group of people that we could reach out to get best practices. What should we think about? What should we ignore? And that's really, really where, I can see what would I call the multiplication factor in really moving CVC into an area where it'll get the credit that it's due.
Yeah, well, that's a great way of putting it, actually, George. And that sort of that Leadership Society advisory boards, which you helped shape and join, George. Thank you for that. It's really one of that outreach is definitely one of the areas that the advisory board is focused on. I think we do some work with sort of potentially the US Chamber of Commerce or different governments and different departments, because, like you say, it feels like that 1,000+ corporates that have used the pandemic to almost say, hey, we need to accelerate our digital, we need to accelerate new opportunities, and what threats of disruptions are out there that we hadn't necessarily accelerated. They're all coming on stream, but many of them still need sort of hand holding. But there's still thousands upon thousands of corporates that haven't really even begun that journey, and so being able to sort of onboard them in a responsible, effective way will help the entrepreneurs, will help them, and obviously help the overall ecosystem, because that's definitely feels like one of the challenges that has been identified. So it's great to see people like yourself, George, share that leadership and identify that outreach as a critical issue, certainly one that we're super mindful of here at GCV. So
I would even go so far as to say, as you mentioned, there's thousands of corporations out there that don't have a CVC, but I'm willing to bet that in every single one of them, there is at least one person, maybe a handful of people, that have thought about it, and they're trying to get critical mass and attention from the actual decision makers. And that's, again, where the Leadership Society can really make an impact and help people understand that there is a way to do this, and a way to do it successfully and profitably, that will not just be writing checks and investing in startups, but again, supporting the entire ecosystem and creating value for your own customers and stakeholders.
Yeah, that's powerful. Well, George, we wish you all the best with the journey that you're on. Apologies for the bad pun, I couldn't resist. But over at Woven Planet and Woven Capital, it's super exciting to see you know, so if you guys really engage, and it feels like it's really interesting, exciting approach complementing Toyota Ventures, and we really appreciate your value and insights you bring into the Leadership Society. So thanks, George.
Well, likewise, I appreciate, and I know our entire team appreciates the leadership and insights that Global Corporate Venturing has brought to the table. And the fact that we can have a forum like this is thanks to you and your team and all the work that you guys have done to build this community of amazing people.